Thank you very much. And I need to just extend my appreciation to IFRA for inviting me here. And I greet every distinguished member who is present. And I hope you enjoy what I have to say. Not much, but I have a little to say. So the fact that we're here today and the mix of people who are here actually shows that we do have an issue when it comes to heritage. Now, Dr. Adebola has explained what heritage is, and also Professor Shasono has given examples of heritage, but my take is a little bit different. And I'm going to speak about the fact that, like I said, the people here, we're all part of the problem. Because generally we'll be regarded as the elite. Elite not necessarily referring to bank balances, but our orientation and our way of thinking. Now, what we have here in terms of how we view heritage is how we who have been to school view heritage. We view it as something which is there, but let's try and distance ourselves because it does not project us in the way that we want to be seen by the society that we want to appeal to. So we want to appear knowledgeable. We want to appear learned in the Western way. We want to appear as if we have acclimatized, and we have accepted, we have imbibed cultures that make us seem better than the man next to us. So many of our heritage narratives are driven by experts, quote unquote, doctors and professors, people who have been to school, and they tell us what our heritage is and what it is not, they assume. And so the person who experiences that heritage is not involved in this conversation. But we accept that, for example, Osho-Oshogo Grove, which is one of the 2 World Heritage Sites, is our heritage. It is, but it is not only that. We accept that the Sakura landscape in the north is part of our heritage. Yes, it is, but it is not only that. There's a lot more heritage that is lived in and lived by people, rather than just these 2 examples, which the West has accepted and told us are our heritage. Now, the issue that I have is the fact that we have to wait for someone else to tell us what is good about what we have. I'm against that. I'm very much against it because someone else should not tell me what is good about what I have. I should therefore not have the power to tell me what is not good about what I have, what I've always had. Someone else cannot come and tell me that based on their own perception, based on their own limit of knowledge, what I have is not good. And I'll give a few examples of how it has become a problem for us. So, our everyday heritage that shapes our daily life, we don't recognize. And our everyday heritage is things that we have experienced. So when I was younger, I used to do my mom's hair every day. It was like Inira, that was a bother. It was bothersome for me. I'll have to do her hair, weave it. How do we call it in those days? Biba, or Didi. I never learned really how to do Didi, but the weaving I would do. And while I was doing her hair, she would tell me stories about her family, about how she grew up in. My mom was in Lagos, born and bred, but we grew up in Ibadan. And she'd tell me about her stories. So that gave me 2 things: the opportunity to learn how to do hair, because constant practice teaches you things that books cannot teach you. And then the second was the opportunity to hear from her about things that were in her own lived experience that were important to her. If we didn't have that occasion, frequently I would not have learned those things. But now we have a situation where our lived experiences, or the lived experiences of those who live heritage, are not recognized. So we're here, all academicians, all researchers, but the people that live the heritage, the weavers, for example, that make things like this. The people in Abeokuta who made this. This I wore for my father's 90th birthday. He's a proud Eva man, and I thought, how else can we celebrate him but to use the fabric of his ancestry? So we don't have those experiences anymore. Now the communities where these heritage activities, where the heritage practices and rituals are common, are not involved in the conversation. So yes, I guess the Osun Osogbo Festival happened, I think it was just recently, the last one. But beyond the devotees, are the people in Osogbo, are they involved in how it is presented? Are they the frontliners who are the ambassadors to tourists, to other devotees, to the world about beyond that week or so many days when the festival is on? What are their lives like? How are they showcased as the custodians of that heritage in that area? We don't know about that. We're never told about that. So I think that we need to have a shift such that we have people-centered heritage. We need to begin to own our own heritage and to get rid of some things that are creeping in. And I don't know whether it is deliberate, whether we have just allowed these things to happen, or whether we're not even aware. And I'd like to speak about something which I find very disturbing. The way we have allowed our names to be, I wouldn't even say anglicized. I went somewhere one day, and I am the kind of person that I like to understand a person's name. Not Professor Oshasana, I know her first name is an English name. But if a young lady comes up to me and maybe she's looking for work and says her name is Precious or her name is Blessing, I say, what is your native name? Your grandfather, when you were named, he had an aspiration for you and he gave you a certain name. You say, my name is Etuno, or my name is Bukola. So I said, there's a meaning inside that name. Blessing, Precious does not connote the same meaning, but we are quick to adopt those names. So I met a young lady. I said, my name is Hadeola. And I said, excuse me? Hadeola. And I said, please write it down. And there's another young person who said, I said, please can you interpret this? I don't really know. She said, Adeola. But she had put Hadeoylor, Hadeola. And I wonder why we have allowed ourselves to be put in a mold where we are not proud of what we have. Again, we, for some reason, especially in the Yoruba area, have decided to create different forms of the food that we have that are indigenously ours. And therefore we have begun to equate, for some reason we have to equate what we have to what somebody else has. And so a birthday cake is akara oyinbo. As far as I know, akara has always been made from beans. I'm fried, and I'm with salt and all. I'm yet to see a birthday cake that has salt. I'm yet to see a birthday cake that's made of beans. Why do we have to call birthday cake akara oyinbo? Why do the Japanese not have any other interpretation for sushi, which is raw fish, some rice and spices, placed in a leaf and wrapped and served raw? Why must we be in such a hurry to leave what we have, and not even just leave it, but denigrate it? Calling or giving a name that is not our name is an insult in a way. If someone calls the average person on the street a name which is not there, the person will react. That's not my name. But we have allowed ourselves, because we want to be seen and appreciated by a certain sector, to accept certain things and even propagate them on our own. Another thing that we also do, which I find quite disturbing, is the fact that and that goes to the aspect of architecture, and the fact that and somebody asked why I think it was Professor Jayoba that asked about old buildings. And my issue with old buildings right now, because we have tried to find buildings to study every year while I'm at the University of Lagos, and the number that are available to be studied are decreasing over the years. Now, we have found out that even in environments such as the revered palace that we are in, across the Southwest, we have the situation where old buildings are demolished in the name of modernity, improving, brand new, a new person has come in, what have you. There's always an excuse. And my question is, those who are the custodians of our tradition, why do they not say, Otoge, this belongs to my great-grandfather's great-grandfather, Kowabe. We will build another one, but that old one will remain untouched because it tells the story of my journey. Our heritage is not something you wake up and see. It talks about where we are coming from. And will always have relevance to where we are going to. But because, for some reason, I don't know whether it's sponsorship, or those that sponsor, or the fact that in our architectural education, which is the issue that I have, and I'm guilty, and I'm trying to do my bit, we teach, or we appear to teach across board, and Prof may be able to correct me, that new is good and old is not so good. So when we grade, a lot of people would ascribe higher grades to work that shows maybe international style, modernism, and things like that, to the exclusion of our indigenous ones. Granted, we might not be able to design courtyard buildings anymore because they might not necessarily fall into what is relevant to our requirements, but there's certain things that may be extracted from them and will always be relevant. So when it comes to the architecture, the role of architecture being relevant is the fact that the spaces that we design afford certain aspects of interaction that enhance the experiential sharing of our heritage. And I'll explain it this way. In the days of old, the Yoruba cultural houses were not houses as such, they were compounds, an agole, where everybody who had a lineage linkage with the head of the household lived. And there were practices, there were areas of inclusion, a few areas of exclusion. The room of the head of the household had a certain air of authority, which was carried through by the head of the household. But it afforded community activities and communal activities, which people were able to learn from in those environments. But what do we have nowadays? If I ask any young person where they would like to live, they say, I want my room en suite. I must have my room, my bathroom and toilet, my DSTV, my TV, my remote, everything. I want to be on my own. So most houses are developed and designed in that way nowadays, such that the interaction between family members has reduced drastically. People do not sit together to eat anymore. When it's your turn, you go to the kitchen, you make what you want, you go and eat it maybe in your room. Even, you don't interact with other members of the family, you do not learn how to share, you do not have shared experiences, you do not have the chance to talk. If you observe any young person under 30, I guess, out in a public space, even if they go together as a group, 3 or 4 people, each person is on their device. There's no conversation anymore. If they see something interesting, they point it out on the device and go back to their solitude. These are things that are affected by the environments that we design. So we need to look at that even more and realize that we have to build and design inclusive environments. So the heritage events that we have nowadays, we need to make them part of our daily lives, and they should be our own things entirely. I have an issue with some of the practices that we have. Carnivals are very nice. But if you go to the streets of Lagos, you will not see people wearing Yoruba-inspired clothing. It's just like a real carnival. And yes, it may be good for tourism reasons, but I believe the government has a role to play in holding on to authenticity. Authenticity is important because that is what we will always live by. And that's what we remember. So when it comes to taking note of what is ours, let us try to remember practitioners and the practices that they have had in the past. And I would like to give the example of the renowned potter Ladi Kwali, who was not lettered. I wouldn't use the word illiterate. She was not lettered in the Western way, but she was extremely skillful, and she perfected her craft to the extent that I think she was granted a national honor. But what has come of her pottery and her establishment today, nobody really knows, because it was not followed through. And we have other people like the weavers, like the craft makers, who also have a role to play, but are not celebrated because they're not lettered. And what does that do to our heritage? It enables those who see value in them tell us there's no value. And then what do we do with what we have as ours? Dash it out. We give it away, and it ends up in the museums in the West. Because they become collector's items, and you say, it is fetish. But that item that is fetish, that you have been told is fetish, is now a prized possession, prized display in a Western museum. So we need to look inward and value again what is ours. I would like to ask our cultural custodians to rethink their issues surrounding the development of their palaces and places like that, so we keep what is ours and we build on and do not forget our journey. No one should be able to tell us what is not ours anymore. We have to hold on to those things. And before that, I'd like to say something about the demolition that Professor Shasana mentioned. Like I said, I'm always looking for property to investigate and document. And so a few years ago, I went to Okoyibo in Ekwe, where the residence of the last deputy district governor was. And this building was over 100 years old. It had a massive roof, extensive eaves, and I'll try and share the photograph later on. But at some point in time, a bulldozer went to that location. A new development called the Jubilee Chalets had been designed by the Lagos State government and put in place. And this particular building was adjacent to the Jubilee Chalet. It had already been fenced. The Chalet site had already been fenced. And the residence was close to it, and some short distance or a few meters away was also an office that had a colonial building in style of PWD colonial building. It was also on the same site. So when the bulldozer got there, the operator had not witnessed a woman who sells a few sweets and stuff by the roadside. She said when the bulldozer came, the operator said, "Ewoni, which one?" And she said, "I don't know, I'm just selling my things over here, I don't know anything about it." He said, "Okay." And he tossed the coin. And the coin landed on the option of demolishing the residence. That building was demolished. It had no reason to be demolished. It was outside the site, outside the boundary of the chalets. But that's what happens when there is lack of knowledge. Ignorance on the part of those who should know better. So I'd like to remind us of what we have and ask us to keep what we have and celebrate the people who have made our heritage. And I'm going to just give you this little show. This is what we consider nowadays to be almost a traditional fabric. It is an adaptation of, let's say, which is popularized and made by the Egba people in Abeokuta. It's everywhere. But can you ever compare it to this, which I bought at OJ Market 40 years ago? It tells a story. It tells of what someone has done. You can even see that there are words, Lorisha, so many words here. This is heritage. In fact, I was only able to get one wrapper. I put this in my wardrobe. I just look at it every day and I smile. It gives me a good feeling. This is our heritage. We must not allow it die. We must not allow anyone tell us that it has no significance about where we are coming from. We will always go forward, but with our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. We will keep going forward with our heritage. That's a very good practical example of why we should keep our heritage. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, question and answer.
Which is from another state. Thank you, Mark. It's a wonderful lecture. You started with an assumption and very worrisome that we are the genesis of the problem we have in this particular state in Nigeria. For instance, some of our have young boys and girls, and they overgrown our command. Like the names, some of the players, how do you think we can control them? Give them a return to imbibe the culture that is acceptable in the society. As a mother, how do you control them? And how do you let them know that what they are doing is bad? Thank you.
My question will come to border on what has been said, even in the same time here. Now, Prof. Jayola was talking about that Nigeria has two heritage sites, UNESCO enlisted heritage sites in Nigeria, which is the one we have in Sikko, Adamawa, and Oshotubo, in Australia. And that the two are near range. And that's why I would like to ask that, can we not say that is due to modernity, urbanization, westernization, or humanity? Or what can we say about that? Madam Prof just said now, you can just imagine the bulldozer man trusting one for him to know which way, which one to be demolished, and eventually in error, that havoc was wrecked. Now I want to say that probably our government should also come to have a say, even though giving us a voice, which is what we are doing now, about how to best preserve our heritage sites, our heritage, alternative heritages in in addition to that. What happened to Sikko? Vandalization done by human beings. What happened to Oshotogo Group? You can now see that people are now encroaching into it to build modern buildings right within the group that is supposed to be sacred and hallowed. Now, I want to use this medium that now on the individuals, let's see how to educate ourselves. Madam was saying that man that actually demolished, he don't know what to do because he didn't have the knowledge of how sacred or how hallowed those buildings should be or are. Now let's begin to tell the story of ourselves and tell people why we must preserve our heritages. Thank you.
Questions. I'd like to speak to the first question about how we can control, sir. I think that's the word you used. I think by the time a young person has become an adult, it's kind of like a bit late to think of controlling how they think about heritage. The challenge I've had with my postgraduate students is that most of them have never even studied our history, Nigerian history. Even though it's back in the day, history was taught from the point of view of the Landa brothers and Mango Park and that sort of thing, which we know is not the beginning of our history. But be that as it may, we have not experienced it. So what we're trying to do now, we're trying to work on a framework to teach heritage studies and heritage appreciation to children between the ages of 7 and 10. They're the ones that are like a sponge. Anything you tell a 7-year-old, before you know it, it's telling you all about it in a few short moments. So that's where we have to go now. The other thing that we need to do is to stop demonizing our heritage. Make it seem like it's something negative, you know. If you go out in the night, this will catch you. If you know, there's some baba that will deal with you. If you know, there are good and positive aspects of our heritage that we need to keep on talking about and letting people experience. The people that come from outside the country to experience our heritage don't talk about the negative things. But for some reason, we are the ones that always and only speak about the negativity. So I think that's something that we need to do collectively. And why I said we're all guilty, because the people that should be here, those that own the stories, are not here. That's why I said we're all part of the problem. So when we become more inclusive about heritage and transmitting heritage to the next generation, then our level of guilt will be reduced. Sir, you were talking about the UNESCO sites and what's happening, and the fact that we have a serious knowledge deficit when it comes to what is important or what should be important regarding our heritage. If those who are the custodians of, who can finance the development and preservation, do not do, it's a bit difficult for those who have the interest but not the wherewithal to do much. So we can only speak about it, try and advocate for better inclusion, and try and let people understand that it is part of your life. It is who you are. There is no way that, you know, I mean, people say that I sound a bit different from what I'm professing, but that is me. And it is something which I am deeply passionate about, because I see, and you know how it is, if it's something that you live with, you don't take much notice, you don't place much significance to it, because it's something you see daily. But if it's something that you have not seen, and you go to a building and there are carved wooden posts, and the person who carved those posts had never seen an exercise book, but the geometric spacing is equidistant for every single incision on that piece of wood. And there's a story being told, like in the squares on that fabric, a story is being told about somebody, about something, about an event. Then you realize that there is more to life education than what we see written down in black and white. And these are stories that only our heritage can tell. So we have to be intentional about being a part of this and finding ways to challenge those who are intent on keeping us back, because it makes us see that we are in an advanced state. If you go to Japan today, I've never been there, but the stories I've heard, you will still have to take your shoes off before you enter a place. You will receive something, you curtsy, you bow down, you appreciate in the way that they do it. So let us begin to look inward and be proud of what we have. Oh, Ani Langbi Larugel. Thank you.